and welcome to Bedtime Stories with CrispySkates. And we had a little bit of a hiccup last night with some of the sound. So tonight I'm going to recap the pages that we missed last night as well. And I'm terribly sorry about that, but thank you for all of your love and patience and letting me know that you could not hear me. All right, let's get started. Then the brutal minions of the law fell upon the hapless toad, loaded him with chains, and dragged him from the courthouse, shrieking, praying, and protesting across the marketplace, where the playful populace always as serve upon detected crime as they are sympathetic and helpful when is merely wanted, assailed him with jeers, carrots, and popular catchwords, past hooting children, their innocent faces lit up with the pleasure that they ever derive from the sight of a gentleman in difficulties. Across the hollow surrounding bridge, below the spiky proticulus, under the frowning archways of the grim old castle, whose ancient towers soared high overhead past the guardians, full of grinning soldiery of dust, past sentries who coughed in a horrid, sarcastic way, because that is as much as a sentry on the post dare to the show his contempt adorance of crime. But time-worn, winding stairs, past the men-arms and casket of the corset of steel, darting threatening looks through the vizards across the courtyards, where mastiffs strained at their leash and pawed into the air to get at him. Past the ancient warders and the halberds, and they leant against the wall, dozing over a pasty, and a flagon of brown ale, on and on past the rack chamber and the thumbscrew room, past the turning that led to private scaffold, till they reached the door of the grimmest dungeon that they in a heart in the innermost keep. There at last they paused, where an ancient gaoler sat fingering a bunch of mighty keys. "Odd sobskins," said the sergeant of the police, taking off his helmet and wiping his forehead. "Rouse these old loon and take them over from us till the vile toad, a criminal of deepest guilt and a matchless artfulness of resource. Watch and ward him with all thy skill, and mark thee well, graybeard. Should aught untoward befall, thy head shall answer for his and Murin on both of them." The gaoler nodded grimly, laying his withered hand on the shoulder of the miserable toad. "Hi, thank you for joining. Hope you're having a lovely evening." The rusty key creaked in the lock, and the great door clanged behind him. The toad was helpless prisoner in the remotest dungeon of the best guarded keep of the stoutest castle in the length of the breadth of merry England. The willow wren was twittering his thin little song, hidden behind himself in the dark selvage of the river bank. Though it was past 10 o'clock at night, the sky still clung and retained some lingering skirts of light from the departed day, and the sullen hearts of the torrid afternoon broke up and rolled away at the dispersing touch of the cool fingers of short midsummer night. Mole lay stretched on the bank, still panting, and the stress of the fierce day had been cloudless from dawn to late summer. It waited for his friend to return. He had been on the river some while, companions leaving the rat free to keep his engagement a long standing with Otter, and he had come back to find the house dark and deserted with no sign of Rat, who was doubtlessly keeping it up late with his old comrade. It was still too hot to think of staying indoors, so he lay some cool dock leaves over and thought the past of the day's doing, and how very good had they all been. Hi, welcome. The rat's light footfall was presently heard approaching over the parched grass. Oh, the blessed coolness, he said, and sat down gazing thoughtfully into the river silent as the preoccupied stayed to supper, of course. And the mole said presently, simply, and the mole said presently, simply had to. The rat wouldn't hear my going before. You know, the kind they were always are. Sorry, we got a wiggler. And then you know the kind they always are, and made as jolly as for me as they could, right up to the moment that I left. But I felt a brute all the time, as if it was clear to me that they were all very unhappy, though they tried to hide it. Mole, I'm afraid they're in trouble. Little Portly is missing again, and you know what a lot of his father thinks of him, though he says much about it. What did that child? Said the mole lightly. Well, supposes, why worry about it? He's always starting off and getting lost and turning up again. And so he's the adventurous, but no harm ever happens to him. Everybody hereabouts knows him and likes him, and they all do Otter. And you know, maybe sure some animal or other come across and bring him back right again. Why, we've been and found him ourselves, miles from home and quite possessed and cheerful. Yes, but this time it's more serious, said Rat gravely. He's been missing for some trace, and they've asked every animal too for miles around, and no one knows anything about him. Otter's evidently more anxious than he'll even admit. I I got out of him that young Portly hasn't even learnt to swim very well, and I can see he's thinking of the weir. There's a lot of water coming down still, considering the time of the year, and the place has fascination for the child. And there are, well, traps and things, you know. The otters to be nervous about any sign of his before it's time. And now he's nervous. And when I left, he came out with me and he wanted some air and talked about stretching his legs, but I could see that it but I could see it wasn't that. I so drew him out and pumped him. I got it all from him at last. He was going to spend the night watching by the ford. You know the place where the old ford used to be and gone by days before they built the bridge? I know it well, said Mole. But why should Otter choose to watch there? Well, it seems that there was a grave where Portly his first swimming lesson, continued Rat, from what shallow gravely spit near the bank. And it is there that he used to teach him fishing. And there young Portly caught his first fish, of which he was so very proud. The child loved the spot, and the otter thinks that that is where he came wandering back from whenever he is, if he is anywhere, by this time. Poor little chap. He might make for Ford was fond, or he came across it had remained and remember it well, and stop there and play, perhaps. So the otter goes there every night and watches. On chance, you know, just on chance. There were silent time, both thinking of the same thing of the lonely, heart-sore animal, couched by the ford, watching and waiting the long night through on the chance. Well, well, said Ratty presently. I suppose we ought to be thinking about tuning in. But before never offered to move, Rat said the mole, I simply can't go and turn in and go and sleep and do anything. Not even ever doesn't it seem to be anything to be done. Well, get that boat out and the paddle up steam. The moon will be in an hour or so, and then we will search as we can somehow. It will be better than going to bed and doing nothing. Just as I was thinking to myself, said the Ratty, it is not the sort of night for bed anyhow, and daybreak is not very far off, and then we may pick up some news for him. Early risers go along. They got out of the boat, and Rat took the sculls, paddling with caution. In the midstream there was a clear, narrow track with faintly reflection the sky, but whenever the shadows fell on the water from the bank, brush or tree, they were solid to all who appear, and the banks themselves, and the mole had to steer with judgment accordingly. The dark, deserted, and wall was night, and judgment was coming, full of noises and song and chatter and rustling and telling of the small, busy little population who were up and about, playing their trades and vocations through the night till the sunshine shroud all fell on them at last and send them off to their well-earned repose. The water's own noises, too, were meant more apparent by day, and the gurglings and cloops more unexpected and near at hand, and constantly they started at what seemed to suddenly clear call from an actual articulate voice. The line in the horizon was still clear and hard against the sky, and one of the particular quarter it showed back against a silvery climbing phosphorescence that grew and grew. At last, over the rim and waiting the earth of the moon lifted with slow majesty till it swung clear and the horizon rode off. Free of moorings and more, they began to see the surfaces, meadows widespread and quiet gardens, and the river itself from the bank to bank, and softly disclosed and washed clean of the mystery and terror, and all radiant again, as busy by day, but with difference that was tremendous. Their old haunts greeted them against the other raiment, as they had slipped away and put on the new pure apparel and had come quietly back, smiling as they shyly waited to see if they would be recognized under it again. Fastening their boat to the willow of their friends landed in this silent silver kingdom, that patiently explored the hedges of the hollow trees and runnels of the little culverts and ditches and dry waterways. Embarking against the crossover, they worked their way up the stream of this manner, while the moon's serene and detached in cloudless sky did what she could do through so far off to help them in their quest. Till her hour came, she sank earthwards reluctantly and left them, and mystery once more had felled and a river. All right, Crispy Cats, thank you so much for watching. Until tomorrow, we will read again. I hope you guys heard all of this very well. I love you all very dearly. Sweet dreams. Keep it